They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I prefer mine with a side of public humiliation and a garnish of professional destruction. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Patrick Sloan, and until 6 months ago, I was what you'd call the human screensaver. Present, functional, but utterly forgettable. At 33, I'd mastered the art of being aggressively average. Marketing manager at Whitford Industries, decent salary, reliable Honda Civic, and a fiancée who looked good in Instagram photos. The American dream, right? Wrong. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I should have seen it coming when Brooke started posting those inspirational quotes about knowing your worth and upgrading your life. But I was too busy being Patrick the dependable, Patrick the safe choice, Patrick the guy who always picks up the check. The revelation came through a group chat screenshot, delivered anonymously to my phone at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. The conversation was between Brooke, my best friend Kyle Adams, and their mutual friends, people I'd known for years, people who'd eaten at my table and borrowed my tools. Did you see Patrick's face when Kyle walked in? Brooke, priceless. He's so clueless. Jessica, how long until he figures it out? Mike, betting pool says 2 weeks max. Kyle, poor Patrick. He's sweet, but Kyle's just more everything. Brooke. I stared at that screen for 20 minutes, my coffee growing cold, my world quietly imploding. The timestamp showed they'd been laughing about me for weeks, months maybe. Sweet Patrick. Poor Patrick. Clueless Patrick. Not anymore. The next morning, I walked into Whitford Industries with my usual smile, nodded at Rita the receptionist, grabbed my usual coffee from the break room. Everything normal, everything fine. Except for the rage simmering behind my eyes like oil in a hot pan. "Morning, Patrick," called Dana Whitford, our CEO, as she swept past in her trademark black suit. At 45, Dana commanded respect without raising her voice. Sharp, elegant, and rumored to have fired 3 executives via text message while getting a pedicure. "Morning, Ms. Whitford," I replied, my voice steady. She paused, studying me with those calculating green eyes. "You look different today." "Just tired," I lied. She tilted her head. "Tired can be dangerous. Makes people do unexpected things." Before I could respond, she was gone, her heels clicking down the hallway like a countdown timer. At lunch, I drove to the Lucky Hammer, a dive bar on the wrong side of town where my cousin Mick worked as a part-time bouncer. The place smelled like stale beer and broken dreams, perfect for my mood. "You look like someone ran over your dog," Mick said, sliding a beer across the scarred wooden bar. At 29, Mick was built like a linebacker and had the emotional intelligence of a golden retriever. "What's eating you?" I showed him the screenshot. Mick's face darkened as he read. "That backstabbing piece of—" "Language," I interrupted. "There are ladies present." He glanced around the empty bar. "What ladies?" "Future ladies. I'm planning ahead." Mick didn't laugh at my joke. That's when I knew it was bad. "So what's the plan?" he asked. "Want me to have a chat with Kyle? I know some guys who know some guys." "No violence," I said quickly. "I'm not going to prison for these people." "Then what? You gonna cry into your beer and move on?" I took a long sip, considering. "Something like that." But I was lying. Even as I sat there, my mind was working, calculating, planning. Patrick the dependable was gone. Time to meet Patrick the dangerous. That evening, I sat in my living room, our living room technically, since Brooke's name was on the lease too, and waited. She came home at 7:30, later than usual, humming some pop song and checking her phone. "Hey babe," she called, not looking up from her screen. "How was your day?" "Educational," I said. She finally looked at me, and something in my expression made her pause. "Everything okay?" I could have confronted her then, could have shown her the screenshot, demanded explanations, made a scene. Instead, I smiled. "Everything's perfect," I said. "By the way, Kyle stopped by the office today. Said he had something important to tell me." Her face went pale. "Oh? What about?" He didn't say, but he seemed excited. Said it would be life-changing news. Brooke's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the coffee table. "Patrick, I should probably call him back," I continued, pulling out my phone. "He seemed really eager to talk." "Wait," her voice cracked. "Maybe we should talk first." I looked at her. Really looked. The woman I'd planned to marry, the woman I'd trusted with my secrets, my bank account, my future. She was beautiful, I'd give her that. But beauty without loyalty was just expensive packaging on a cheap product. "Talk about what?" I asked innocently. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, a fish gasping for water. Before she could find her voice, my phone buzzed. A text from Kyle. "Got something for you tomorrow. You're going to love it." I showed Brooke the message. Her face crumpled. "It's not what you think," she whispered. "I'm not thinking anything," I said, standing up. "I'm just a sweet, clueless guy, remember?" Her eyes widened. She knew. Somehow, she knew that I knew. "Patrick, please, let me explain." "Nothing to explain," I said, heading for the door. "I'm going for a drive. Don't wait up." I left her sitting there, tears streaming down her perfectly contoured cheeks. Part of me felt bad, a very small part. The rest of me was already planning my next move. The wedding invitation arrived by hand delivery the next morning. Kyle stood in my office doorway, grinning like a lottery winner, holding an elegant cream envelope. "Special delivery," he announced, loud enough for half the floor to hear. I looked up from my computer where I'd been researching corporate fraud detection methods. Purely educational reading, of course. "Kyle," I said with manufactured warmth, "what brings you to the marketing department?" "Oh, you know." He stepped into my office, closing the door behind him. "Just wanted to personally invite you to the wedding." The wedding. So it was official. I opened the envelope with steady hands. The invitation was expensive. Thick cardstock, gold lettering, the works. "Kyle Adams and Brooke Turner request the honor of your presence." The date was 3 weeks away. The venue was the Riverside Manor, the fanciest place in town. Short engagement, I observed. Kyle's grin faltered slightly. "When you know, right?" "Absolutely." I studied the invitation more carefully. "Open bar?" "Of course. Only the best for our friends." Friends. The word tasted like copper pennies. "I wouldn't miss it," I said, meeting his eyes. "It'll be a night to remember." Something in my tone made him shift uncomfortably. "Great, really great. Brooke will be so happy." "I'm sure she will be." I set the invitation on my desk, right next to my computer screen. "Tell me, Kyle, how long have you been planning this?" "Planning what?" "The wedding. Must take months to organize something this elaborate." His face reddened. We wanted to keep it simple at first, but then you decided to go big, make a statement." I leaned back in my chair. "I get it. Some moments deserve the spotlight." "Right. Exactly." He was sweating now, tiny beads forming on his forehead. "So you'll come? Really?" "I already said I would." "And you'll bring a date?" Interesting question. "Why do you ask?" "Just, don't want you to feel awkward. Being there alone." How thoughtful of him to be concerned about my comfort at his wedding to my ex-fiancée. "I'll figure something out," I said. After Kyle left, I sat staring at the invitation. 3 weeks to plan, 3 weeks to prepare, 3 weeks to become someone they'd never see coming. A knock on my door interrupted my thoughts. Rita poked her head in, her silver hair perfectly styled as always. "Was that Kyle Adams I saw leaving?" she asked. "The very same." Rita stepped into my office, closing the door. At 58, she'd been Dana's right hand for over a decade and knew every secret worth knowing at Whitford Industries. Heard he's getting married, so I'm told. To your ex-fiancée. The plot thickens. Rita's eyes sparkled with mischief. You know, I never liked him. Too smooth. Men that smooth are usually compensating for something. Such as? Oh, I couldn't say. But if someone were curious about Mr. Adams's professional conduct, they might find the quarterly reports illuminating. She left that hanging in the air like smoke from a cigarette. Hypothetically speaking, I said carefully, what kind of illumination might one find? The kind that makes CFOs ask uncomfortable questions. Rita glanced at the door, then back at me. Kyle's been very creative with his expense reports, and his client billing, and his overtime calculations. My pulse quickened. How creative. Creative enough that Dana's been building a file. She just needs the right moment to act. What kind of moment? Rita smiled. The kind where she has a reliable witness, someone trustworthy, someone who's been personally wronged and might be motivated to pay attention to details. I understood. Dana Whitford didn't just fire people. She destroyed them, methodically, completely, and always with plausible deniability. If Kyle had been stealing from the company, she'd been waiting for the perfect opportunity to nail him. Hypothetically, I said, when might this moment arise? Oh, I'd say very soon. Maybe after a certain wedding, when everyone's guard is down and feeling celebratory. After Rita left, I opened my laptop and started researching wedding venues. The Riverside Manor had excellent online reviews, 5-star service, elegant ballroom, and most importantly, a live social media feed for special events. Every moment would be captured, shared, and preserved forever. Perfect. That evening, I stopped by the Lucky Hammer again. Mick was working the door, checking IDs with the enthusiasm of a DMV employee. Back again? He asked. This is becoming a habit. I need a favor. What kind of favor? I showed him the wedding invitation. Mick read it, his expression growing darker with each word. They invited you to their wedding? That's cold, even for them. I need a suit, I said. Something expensive, something that makes a statement. What kind of statement? The kind that says I'm not the same Patrick they used to know. Mick studied my face. You're really going through with this, aren't you? Whatever this is. I'm going to a wedding, I said innocently. With a date. You got a date? I'm working on it. The next morning, I knocked on Dana Whitford's office door. She looked up from her computer, those green eyes assessing me like a chess player studying the board. Patrick, what can I do for you? I need a favor. I don't do favors, I make deals. Even better. She leaned back in her leather chair. I'm listening. I need a date for a wedding. You need a witness for Kyle Adams. Her eyebrows rose slightly. Interesting proposition. What makes you think I need a witness? Rita mentioned you've been building a file. Rita talks too much. Rita cares about this company. So do I. Dana was quiet for a long moment, studying me. The wedding is Kyle's? Kyle and my ex-fiancée, yes. Ah. Understanding flickered in her eyes. And you want to make an entrance. I want to make a statement. What kind of statement? I met her gaze steadily. The kind that changes everything. She smiled then, sharp and predatory. Mr. Sloan, I think we're going to get along very well. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Dana and I met regularly, ostensibly to discuss the quarterly marketing reports, but really to plan our strategy. She was a master tactician, and I was learning from the best. The key, she explained during one of our sessions, is timing. You can have all the evidence in the world, but if you play your hand too early, your target has time to recover. Too late, and the moment passes. So when do we move? At the reception, after the ceremony, during the speeches, when everyone's emotional and off guard. She'd been building her case against Kyle for months. Falsified expense reports, inflated billing hours, mysterious client charges that couldn't be verified. Individually, they might be explained away as mistakes. Together, they painted a picture of systematic fraud. "Why haven't you fired him already?" I asked. "Because firing him isn't enough," Dana said. "I want him destroyed, unemployable, a cautionary tale." Her smile was ice cold. "Kyle Adams stole from my company. That makes it personal." I understood the feeling. Meanwhile, Brooke had been trying to reach me. Phone calls, text messages, even showing up at my apartment. I ignored them all. Let her wonder. Let her worry. The anticipation was half the punishment. 3 days before the wedding, she cornered me in the grocery store parking lot. "Patrick, please," she said, stepping out from behind a minivan. "We need to talk." She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, her usually perfect hair disheveled, her hands shaking slightly. "Good." "Hello, Brooke," I said pleasantly. "Shouldn't you be getting ready for your big day?" "That's what I want to talk about. This whole thing, it's what? A mistake? A misunderstanding? A temporary lapse in judgment?" She flinched at my tone. "You're different." "I'm exactly the same. You're just seeing me clearly for the first time." "The Patrick I knew would never—" "The Patrick you knew was an idiot," I interrupted. "He trusted people who didn't deserve it. He ignored red flags because he wanted to believe the best in everyone. He was weak." "You're not weak," she whispered. "No," I agreed. "I'm not. Not anymore." I started to walk away, but she grabbed my arm. "Don't come to the wedding," she said desperately. "Please, it'll just hurt everyone." I looked down at her hand on my sleeve, then back at her face. "I already RSVP'd. Wouldn't want to be rude." "Patrick, see you Saturday, Brooke. I'll be the one with the beautiful date." Her face crumpled, but I was already walking away. Saturday arrived gray and drizzly, perfect weather for what I had planned. I picked up Dana at her penthouse apartment, and she took my breath away. She wore a midnight blue dress that probably cost more than my car. Her silver hair swept into an elegant updo, diamonds glittering at her throat. "You clean up well," she said, appraising my new suit, charcoal gray, Italian wool, and worth every penny I'd spent on it. "You look incredible," I replied honestly. "I should. I have a reputation to maintain." We arrived at the Riverside Manor fashionably late, just as the ceremony was beginning. Every head turned as we walked down the aisle to our seats. I could feel the stares, hear the whispered conversations. "Is that Patrick?" "Who's the woman with him?" "She looks expensive." Brooke saw us from the altar, her face going white beneath her makeup. Kyle, standing beside her in his rented tux, looked like he'd swallowed a live fish. The ceremony was beautiful, I had to admit. Brooke had always had good taste, even if her judgment in men was questionable. The flowers were perfect, the music was lovely, and the bride looked radiant despite her obvious distress. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the union, the silence stretched just a beat too long. Everyone looked at me. I smiled and said nothing. The reception was held in the manor's grand ballroom, decorated with white roses and fairy lights. Our table assignment was interesting. We were seated with Kyle's family and a few mutual friends, close enough to the head table to see everything, far enough away to avoid immediate confrontation. "Subtle," Dana murmured as we took our seats. "They want me to see how happy they are," I replied. "How perfect their life is going to be." "And how do you feel about that?" I watched Kyle feeding Brooke a bite of wedding cake, both of them laughing for the cameras. "I feel like the luckiest man in the room." Dana's smile was sharp as a blade. "Good, because it's almost showtime." The speeches began after dinner. Kyle's father went first, telling embarrassing childhood stories. Brooke's maid of honor followed with a teary tribute to their friendship. Then Kyle stood up, microphone in hand, grinning at the crowd. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began, "especially those of you who've been with us through all the ups and downs, the changes, the transitions." His eyes found mine across the room. Some people might say that love is about timing, about finding the right person at the right moment. But I think love is about recognizing what you really need, even if it means making difficult choices. The crowd murmured appreciatively. I felt Dana tense beside me. "Brooke and I didn't plan for this to happen," Kyle continued. "But sometimes the heart wants what it wants, and we're grateful to everyone who supported us, even when the situation was complicated." More murmurs. A few people glanced at me sympathetically. "So here's to new beginnings," Kyle raised his champagne glass, "and to leaving the past where it belongs." The crowd toasted. I didn't raise my glass. "Your turn," Dana whispered. I stood up slowly, and the room fell silent. Kyle's smile faltered as I walked toward the head table, Dana close behind me. "Kyle," I said, my voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. "Beautiful speech. Really moving." "Patrick," Kyle said carefully. "I'm glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it for the world." I looked around the room, taking in all the faces. Friends, family, co-workers, all watching, all waiting. "I have something for you," I continued, pulling out a manila envelope. "A wedding present." Kyle's face went pale. "Patrick, maybe this isn't the time." "Oh, it's the perfect time," I interrupted. "After all, this is a celebration of new beginnings, right? And sometimes new beginnings require cleaning house." I handed him the envelope. He stared at it like it might explode. "Open it," I said gently. With shaking hands, Kyle opened the envelope and pulled out the contents: financial records, expense reports, bank statements, all the evidence Dana had been collecting for months. "What is this?" Brooke asked, leaning over to look. Kyle's face was white as his shirt. "I can explain." "Actually," Dana said, stepping forward. "Let me explain. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Dana Whitford, CEO of Whitford Industries, where Kyle works, or rather, worked." The room erupted in whispers. "You see," Dana continued, her voice cutting through the noise like a knife, "Kyle has been stealing from my company for over a year, falsifying records, inflating expenses, billing for services never rendered. The total comes to just over $200,000. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Someone's champagne glass shattered on the floor. "That's not true," Kyle shouted, but his voice cracked. "This is harassment. This is evidence," I said calmly. "All documented, all verified, all admissible in court." Brooke stared at Kyle in horror. "You stole money?" "It's not what it looks like," Kyle said desperately. "I can explain everything. I was going to pay it back." "With what?" Dana asked. "Your salary? The salary you'll never receive again from any reputable company once word of this gets out?" The wedding guests were on their feet now, some trying to get closer, others backing toward the exits. Phones were out, recording everything. The live social media feed was probably lighting up. "Patrick," Brooke whispered, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this?" I looked at her, really looked at her, for what I knew would be the last time. "How could I do this?" I repeated. "Brooke, I'm not the one who cheated. I'm not the one who lied. I'm not the one who stole money to pay for a wedding to impress people who don't matter." The truth of it hit the room like a physical blow. "I'm just the guy who finally stopped being stupid enough to ignore what was right in front of him." Kyle lunged at me then, his composure finally snapping. "You bastard! You ruined everything!" But Dana's security team was faster. Two men in dark suits materialized from nowhere, restraining Kyle before he could reach me. "Gentlemen," Dana said calmly, "please escort Mr. Adams from the premises and call the police. I'll be filing charges first thing Monday morning." As they dragged Kyle away, still screaming threats and accusations, I turned to the crowd of stunned wedding guests. "The bar's still open," I announced, and I believed the band was going to play until midnight. But the party was over. Guests were already streaming toward the exits, whispering among themselves, phones pressed to their ears. By morning, the story would be all over town. Brooke stood alone at the head table in her ruined wedding dress, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "I hope it was worth it," she said bitterly. I considered the question seriously. You know what? It really was. Dana took my arm as we walked toward the exit. "Not bad for your first corporate takedown," she said. "Think Kyle will recover from this?" "Oh, he's finished. No company will touch him after tonight, and the criminal charges will ensure he's unemployable for years." "And Brooke?" Dana glanced back at the devastated bride. She made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the stars were beginning to show through the breaking clouds. Dana's driver was waiting with the car. "So what now?" I asked. "Now we go back to work on Monday and pretend this never happened," Dana said. "Officially." "And unofficially?" Her smile was sharp and satisfied. "Unofficially, you just proved you're exactly the kind of person I want on my team. How do you feel about a promotion?" I looked back at the manor where the last few guests were trickling out into the night. Through the windows, I could see Brooke sitting alone at the head table, her perfect wedding in ruins around her. "I feel like the luckiest man alive," I said. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that follows a storm. I walked into Whitford Industries to find the office buzzing with whispered conversations that faded the moment I appeared. Word travels fast in a small town, and by now everyone knew what had happened at the wedding. Rita greeted me with a knowing smile. "Good morning, Patrick. How was your weekend?" "Eventful," I replied. "I'll bet. Ms. Whitford wants to see you in her office." Dana was waiting with coffee and what looked like a contract. She'd traded her weekend glamour for her usual business armor: sharp suit, perfect makeup, and those calculating green eyes that missed nothing. "Sit down," she said without preamble. "We need to talk." I took the offered chair and accepted the coffee. It was excellent, like everything else in Dana's world. "First," she said, "the police were very interested in our evidence. Kyle's going to be charged with embezzlement, fraud, and theft. His lawyer is already talking about a plea deal." "How long will he get?" 2 to 5 years if he's lucky, plus restitution, which he'll never be able to pay. Dana's smile was cold. "He'll be bankrupt and unemployable when he gets out." "And Brooke?" "Not charged with anything, but guilty by association. Her retail management career is effectively over. No one wants to hire the wife of a convicted embezzler." I should have felt bad about that. The old Patrick would have. But the old Patrick was gone, buried under months of humiliation and betrayal. "Now," Dana continued, sliding the contract across her desk, "let's talk about your future." I scanned the document. It was a promotion offer, Senior Vice President of Strategic Development, with a salary that made my current paycheck look like pocket money. "Strategic Development? A new position. You'll report directly to me, handle sensitive projects, manage difficult situations." Dana leaned back in her chair. "Think of it as being my official problem solver. And unofficially, you'll be my enforcer. The person I send when someone needs to be reminded that actions have consequences." It was a devil's bargain, and we both knew it. But I'd already sold my soul for revenge. Might as well get paid for it. "When do I start?" "You already have. Your first assignment is cleaning up the Kyle situation. Make sure all the financial records are properly documented, coordinate with legal and accounting, handle any media inquiries." "Media inquiries?" Dana's smile was sharp. "Oh yes, the story's already hit the local news. Accountant arrested at own wedding for corporate fraud." It's quite sensational. She was right. By lunch, my phone was buzzing with calls from reporters, old friends, and curious acquaintances. I ignored them all and focused on work. There was something satisfying about methodically documenting Kyle's crimes, turning his betrayal into neat columns of numbers and dates. Around 3 o'clock, my cousin Mick showed up at the office, still in his construction clothes and looking uncomfortable in the corporate environment. "Heard you caused quite a stir this weekend," he said, settling into the chair across from my new, larger desk. "News travels fast. Small town, big scandal." Mick studied my face. "You look different. Happy but different." "I feel different. Good different or scary different?" I considered the question. "Both, probably." Mick was quiet for a moment. "You know, I never liked Brooke. Too high maintenance, but I didn't think she'd cheat on you." "Neither did I. And Kyle, man, I never saw that coming. Stealing money to pay for a wedding? That's cold." "It gets better," I said, pulling up the police report on my computer. "Turns out the money he stole? A lot of it went to the engagement ring, the wedding venue, the honeymoon they had planned. He was literally using stolen money to celebrate stealing my fiancée." Mick whistled low. "That's some next-level betrayal right there." The best part? Brooke had no idea. She thought Kyle was just successful at his job. Now she's married to a felon and facing financial ruin. "You feel bad about that?" I thought about it honestly. No. She made her choice. She chose the guy who looked more successful, more exciting, more everything. Now she gets to live with the consequences. "And you get to live with yours." "Yes, and I'm fine with that." Mick left around 4, but not before extracting a promise that I'd stop by the Lucky Hammer soon. "Don't let all this corporate success go to your head," he warned. At 5:30, as I was packing up for the day, my phone rang. Brooke's number flashed on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Hello, Brooke." "Patrick." Her voice was hoarse, probably from crying. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do." "Please, just 5 minutes. I'm in the parking lot." Against my better judgment, I went downstairs. Brooke was sitting in her car, Kyle's car, technically, though it would probably be repossessed soon. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 days. "Get in," she said. "I'm fine standing here." "Please, Patrick, people are staring." She was right. A few employees were watching from the lobby windows. I got in the passenger seat, but left the door open. "Kyle's in jail," she said without preamble. "I know. They set bail at $50,000. We don't have that kind of money." "I'm sorry to hear that." She turned to face me, her eyes red and swollen. "How long did you know?" "About the stealing?" "I found out the same time you did." "About us, about Kyle and me." "Long enough." "Why didn't you say anything?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. Even crying and disheveled, she was beautiful. But beauty without character was just an attractive shell. "What would have been the point?" I asked. "You'd made your choice. You just hadn't told me yet." "I never meant for it to happen." "But it did happen, and you kept it happening. For months." She was quiet for a long moment. "I thought you'd fight for me." "Fight for you?" I couldn't keep the incredulity out of my voice. "Brooke, you were cheating on me with my best friend. You were planning to leave me. What exactly was I supposed to fight for?" "For us. For what we had." "What we had was a lie. You were lying to me. Kyle was lying to me. Hell, you were probably lying to yourselves." She started crying again, big, messy sobs that shook her whole body. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't change what you did. Can you ever forgive me?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Could I forgive her? Maybe, eventually. Did I want to? "Brooke," I said gently, "forgiveness is something you do for yourself, not for other people. And right now, I don't want to forgive you. I want to remember exactly how this feels, so I never let anyone do it to me again." She looked at me like I was a stranger. "You're not the same person." "No," I agreed. "I'm not. The person you knew was weak. He let people walk all over him because he was afraid of being alone. But you know what I learned? Being alone is better than being with people who don't respect you." I got out of the car. "Good luck, Brooke. I hope things work out for you." "Patrick, wait!" But I was already walking away. That night, I sat in my apartment now, since Brooke had moved out, and opened a bottle of expensive wine. Dana had given it to me as a congratulations gift, along with a note. To new beginnings and old scores settled. I raised my glass to the empty room. "To Patrick Sloan," I said aloud. "May he never be stupid enough to trust the wrong people again." The wine was excellent. Everything in my new life was going to be excellent.